So what do you do when you discover your sexuality or your sexual expression with someone isn't what you thought it was, after you thought you had it all figured out? I'm Cathy Bartoli from theintimacydojo.com.
I'm Andi Cortland from levelupsex.com.
I'm Raj. I'm just a regular guy. I'm married to Andi.
So you've been going through this, you gender transition, opening your relationship, and when you first met Andi, you were kind of the traditional married couple, like
Yep.
everything was good. We were talking about how people can be wired certain ways, and you're kind of wired towards cis women, women that were born as female that express themselves as female. And so that's kind of what society says we should be.
Yeah.
And so you've kind of been coasting along in this, like everything is going pretty well. Like
Yep.
I don't have to question
I've
anything.
met the social expectations when it comes to that.
And Andi kind of blew that out of the water.
Yeah.
Right. Whoops.
Yeah. No, I think even though it can be really painful to have our nice cozy path kind of blown up, it can also be really an amazing self-discovery.
Yeah.
Well, and I think what we've realized, you said he's kind of wired toward cis women. It's more that he's wired toward, as strange as it sounds, feminine energy.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Because as you found out,
I recently played with a trans woman, and she expresses very, very feminine, even though her body is, would be described as born male. And I really enjoyed it. It was very much like playing with a woman. It was like, that's the energy she expresses.
whereas when you're with me, how does it feel?
It feels a little bit like dissonant, because while Annie's body physically is very, very feminine, her energy is not, because she doesn't quite identify as male or as male or female.
Mm-hmm.
So it feels there's a bit of a dissonance there
Yeah.
that I can sense.
Yeah. So it is like, I know when I went through this, like in the early 90s, I kissed a woman. I'm like, I must be a lesbian because I liked kissing this woman.
Right.
And then later I discovered I was bisexual or queer, but like that whole, like I had this mental pathway figured out. I kind of had expectations of how my life would unfold, and it was kind of like torn asunder and thrown up in the air. Like it's a hard thing to deal with. And how did you deal with that as you went through that?
So for me, it's been a journey that sort of got kicked off by all of this exploration by Andi, of sort of discovering who I am sexually. Yes, as broad strokes, I always knew that I was this guy, I'm straight, and all of that. But because we started out in a fairly traditional marriage, I didn't really have to, when society defines a certain set of parameters for what a relationship should look like.
Yeah.
And if you happen to fall into that, you're pretty good. You can just coast along.
Yeah, we're taught from infancy, Cinderella, Snow White. Like,
Yeah,
the whole thing.
Right.
And, there's a certain way that men and women relate. If you go read any, issue of Cosmo, there are always the 50 sex positions, and they always seem to be discovering, and you just do that, and you're good. But all of that, But basically, what I'm trying to say is that there are supposedly these traditional norms and paths that are set.
Yeah.
But when your relationship goes in a non-traditional direction, what you realize is that as your partner is in this voyage of self-discovery, you have to be on your own, because that's the only way you can actually. It's not about keeping up with your partner, it's about discovering who you are sexually, sort of developing your own unique identity that doesn't rely on your partner or on society.
That's beautiful. And I wish we were taught that as children, that we get to discover who we are.
Right.
Because we're not really. We're told we should fit into these norms, and if we deviate, we're wrong.
Yeah.
But discovering who you are, and that can change. Like who you are right now may not be who you are tomorrow or the day after or next year. But discovering what works for you, it's like a really delicious voyage.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean,
Yes.
it's delicious, but it's definitely not easy,
No.
and it's something that's ongoing. What I've found is that, unfortunately, and this is one of the reasons why I'm so interested in these videos that we're doing and this work that we're doing, is that I found so few resources for guys who are partners or are going through these kinds of transitions and self-discovery for discovering themselves, because as cis straight guys, you're supposed to be a certain way. That's So if you fall into that bucket of traditional relationships, you're very well set.
Mm-hmm.
The world is all around you. It's your oyster. You can do whatever you want. But the minute you go outside of that, there's not a lot of material or support for discovering who you really are. and that's what I've been finding, and it's so it can also be a challenge.
Well, I really appreciate you sharing and helping other people feel not so alone around this. So, what have you discovered about your sexuality? What are you discovering about you? We'd love to know, and we'd love to hear any questions you might have in the comments below.
Please let us know.